Well, they did it. Sony made an entire cinematic universe of movies, 6 movies, and not one of them is good. And I don't mean like watchable or fun, because yeah, Venom's fun, but I mean good. Like if somebody asks you, should I watch this? You don't have to be like, yeah, if you're in the right mood, don't take it too seriously, and it's not very much like the comics, and some of the action doesn't look great. No, you say, yes, this is a good movie, you're gonna love it. I don't think Sony has made one of those yet. Movies like that in franchises like this, Iron Man 1. Guardians of the Galaxy, X-Men First Class, Fast 5, Bumblebee. But no, they made 6 movies. Not only are none of them great, but there's also no consistency movie to movie in terms of the setting or the tone. Characters don't cross over. It's unclear if any of them take place in the same universe. It's really astounding. And like Kraven, it's probably not the worst one. I think you could probably make the case that just as being a movie, Madam Web is the worst of these. The weird part, and the hottest take I have, is that Morbius is probably the just flat out best movie in this bunk, but it's like not fun and I don't like it. And Madam Web, obviously I love. And this falls somewhere in the middle. Kraven is, in a lot of ways, kind of boring, but in a lot of other ways, it's kind of stupid, but I don't think it ever becomes so stupid that it's fun. Let's start right off the bat with what is absolutely the weakest point of this entire cinematic universe is casting. I think you could look back at almost every bad decision they've made and gone, oh yeah, no, the casting for that is weird. Oh yeah, Woody Harrelson wasn't a good Carnage. Oh yeah, Jared Leto, probably not the right guy for Morbius right now. Oh yeah, Dakota Johnson, weird pick for Madam Web. And here, Aaron Taylor Johnson is doing his absolute best, and I can see it all coming off the screen. There's some bits where it seems like they made his mouth move digitally to speak Russian, but when he's doing accents, he's trying his best. He's obviously jacked, which is crazy because he still doesn't look big enough to be Kraven. And I think that's most of the fault of the Spider-Man 2 video game, which made Kraven humongous. And it's like, yeah, that's what Kraven should probably look like. Really, unless we're casting professional wrestlers, there's really nothing we can do about that. But he clearly put in work. There's a lot of stunts. I imagine he did some of them. I think he tried his best. I just think overall he is too pretty to be Kraven. That's my problem with him. They try to make him look greasy and messy, like a wild man. He has t-shirts on and stuff, but it always looks like a model in t-shirts as opposed to an actual messy guy wearing a t-shirt. Looks a little too put together. But also the idea that this Kraven has no Russian accent, is barely Russian, was raised in the United States, is another reason why it's really weird that Aaron Taylor Johnson's playing this character. And I like him in other stuff. I don't think he's a bad actor. I think he can be quite funny when he needs to be. I think this script is just very poor. I would say that's definitely the biggest individual problem with this movie. It was written by 3 people, which they have a humongous variance in terms of quality, like the Equalizer movies, Iron Man 1, Transformers The Last Night. So I don't think these are people that cannot write a movie. This does feel like a studio thing of just Sony managing everything, editing this into oblivion. There's so much weird editing going on. I wouldn't say it's as blatant as Madam Web. I'm going to need to watch it again. But it does just feel like you're watching another Frankenstein of a movie where different ideas and script pages are kind of stapled together. The easiest way you can tell that's what's going on is that much like all these spunk movies, there's stuff that's just in the trailer that seems pretty important and it's pretty clear where it would go. That just doesn't make it into the movie. I would say, without fully spoiling it, 2 biggest moments from the trailers that don't make it into this movie that I think are wild. 1, the moment where he lights the stick using the whole Kraven costume, and this is a big moment from the end of the trailer that is not in the movie. I guess it would have gone at the end, but I don't know why they ended it the way they did instead. I don't know. But then second, and maybe more bizarre, when Kraven is attacked by the lion, there's a voiceover from his dad that's leave him. He's not even cool. He can't even fight lion. Now, I don't think that was repurposed dialogue from another point in the movie, because I can't think of another time when he was leave him to someone, to his other son or one of his goons or something like that. When Russell Crowe's character, the Elder Kraven, says that, it feels like in that scene, he is talking about Kraven, but that is 100% not what happens in the movie. And that change really informs their relationship, which is at least supposed to be the crux of this movie. But anyway, back to Aaron Taylor Johnson. I think he was okay, but not nearly interesting enough to work as this character. However, I don't think that's necessarily his fault. I do think that an actor with just a little bit more goofiness could have made this a little bit more fun. It's hard not to immediately think of him because I just associate him with Russia now because of the Stranger Things subplot and now Red Guardian, but like David Harbour feels like the kind of guy that could have done Kraven kind of fun, but that would have been a completely different take on this character that was not sexy young American Kraven, a version of Kraven that makes no sense. So Aaron Taylor Johnson, not the worst part of the movie by any stretch, but also not doing a good enough job to save it. Ariana DeBose needs to not just fire her agent, she needs to throw her agent into a volcano. I don't know what is going on with her. She won an Oscar for West Side Story, and she was very good in West Side Story. I think she's great on Schmigadoon. She's clearly very funny. But the last couple of years have just been like Wish, Argyle, House of Spoils, which I haven't seen, but I have heard not great things, and this. And like, obviously Wish, you're not going to not take the Disney movie. Like, of course you're going to try that. How did she know it was going to be the most boring and uncreative Disney animated movie, especially since it was supposed to be like 100th anniversary, so of course this is going to be a big deal, but instead it stinks. Which, Wish. But like, I don't blame her for taking that role. Argyle, it's a small role in a Matthew Vaughn movie. Sometimes those are fun, and I didn't hate Argyle that much, and honestly, the parts that she's in are the parts that work. But this, like, how can you not see it from a mile away as just being a mess? Calypso, one of those characters who has a problematic portrayal in older versions of the comics where she is from. I don't know what to call this, but she doesn't, you know what she doesn't get? She doesn't get the Mandarin treatment, where they really work a bunch of things together and like come up with a really clever way to take the problematic aspects of the character and use them to do something else. And I mean either version. I mean Mandarin from Iron Man 3 or Wenwu from the Shang-Chi movie, but both of those were like takes on a character that could not exist now the way that it did when it was created in the comics. Calypso is also like that, falling into the stereotypes of like a mystical shaman priestess type character. So I'm not surprised that they decided they had to do something differently, but what they replaced the original character with is nothing. This character just has nothing to do. She is presumably the second lead in this movie, and I think she technically is, but she has very little personality. Her backstory is very strange and also feels like one of the casualties of the reshoots. And I like Ariana DeBose a lot, but this performance just does not work. Fred Hetchinger plays Dimitri, Sergei's half-brother, who will eventually be the chameleon. Didn't really like it. Didn't have a strong opinion about it. This character's supposed to be kind of annoying. It's one of those characters that everybody in the movie's like, he sucks. And I'm like, I agree. But, that's kind of the point. I like them in Thelma. So, I don't fully blame him for this. There's 3 villains in this movie that are all so weird. The first one is Nikolai Kravinoff, the dad, played by Russell Crowe. And even if he's not like a straight up villain, he is a bad father who forces the kids to hunt and stuff. So like bad guy and gang leader. And that is a big part of the plot. Russell Crowe, for me, has never turned in a performance I couldn't enjoy. And this is another one that I think I kind of liked. I just think he's got a weird intensity. The way his character dresses and like ascots is pretty silly. I like how much he has a thick, goofy Russian accent that I wish more of the characters committed to or had to commit to. But yeah, he's good. I think there's something about Russell Crowe where he's just a star and he shows up in a movie like this and it turns in a fine performance. Then you get Christopher Abbott, who I saw recently in that movie about the dominatrix, and I liked him in that. And he was in Poor Things as well. He plays a character named the Foreigner. Now, cards on the table, I know a fair amount about comics. Spider-Man is one of my blinder spots, not because I don't know a lot about Spider-Man, but just there's so much Spider-Man, and it is not a character who I read as actively as characters like the X-Men or She-Hulk or the Guardians of the Galaxy, and that helps if it's a character who hasn't been in a million books. So like a character like Spider-Man, even if you read your occasional Spider-Man book, you're still going to feel like you're behind. All this to say, I didn't really know too much about the Foreigner. I knew him mostly as being Silver Sable's fiance, and he's a spy who fights with Spider-Man, and he's a bad guy, and that's really all I had. I did not know, going into this, that he hypnotizes people, but I went and looked on the Wikipedia, and apparently that is something he can do, and the way that they portray it in the movie, having read about it in the Wikipedia page, makes sense. They don't explain what's happening in the movie, and I don't think every comic book character needs to explain how their powers work, or even you see where somebody draws on a chalkboard like, this is it, Scott, this is what his powers are. But I do think, for whatever this guy is doing to make any sense in this movie, we need to get some sense for what's happening here. Because in the comics, this character can hypnotize you with his eyes very quickly, and he can use that to make you think that he's moving at super speed when really you're just kind of in a daze. So it seems like he usually uses it to like run away. But like he'll hypnotize you and then, oh my god, he's behind you. How did you get there? They do that in this. And that's what I thought was happening, but it was so unclear, especially because this was happening during one-on-one fights where other characters were around. I couldn't help watch it and go, what are the other characters seeing? Is he just sneaking around like at regular speed and then posing and then like, I don't know, it's weird. I don't think this character is very good, but I like that he had a gimmick and I kind of appreciate that he was here. He led to what is easily the silliest thing that happens in this movie, and it involves a toxin that he gives, and not toxin the symbiote, don't even get me started, but a toxin or like a poison, you know, that kind of thing, that he gives Kraven, and maybe we'll talk about it in a future video because it is wild, but it's kind of spoilery. The last villain, and I would say the main villain of the movie, which I was kind of surprised by, Alexei Siskevich, played by Alessandro Nivola. Now, I don't know too much about this guy. Apparently, he's in that Brutalist movie, and I thought this character was kind of fun. I liked him when he was a guy. He was kind of interesting. He felt kind of silly. He had a weird little chip on his shoulder from the beginning of the movie, so you always got like, what's this guy's deal? Also, he just was a guy who was nice to a dog at one point, and it's like, oh yeah, this guy's got fun. And that's a lot. It goes a long way into making me cool with watching this character. Honestly, I feel like this character in this movie was working better than any other character in this movie. That being said, I have to assume this Rhino stuff was added late in the game, because he was always probably going to be the Rhino, and I'm betting, based on the way they frame it in certain scenes, he was always going to be somewhat bulletproof or something like that. But the fact that he turns into the Rhino and has a full Rhino fight, I wish I liked it, but it just doesn't look good. And I'm not saying the animators did a bad job. I think the problem is in scale. And I know this sounds crazy because the Rhino he turns into is like way bigger than him, and it's like a fully big Rhino. It's still not big enough because his head is humongous on this thing, and it doesn't look good. And I feel like you need a smaller head and a humongous body. But that being said, I like the other scenes with this guy in it. I think it was pretty fun, but overall still kind of bad. Action wise, I think Kraven goes for a lot. There were quite a few action scenes. I can remember what they all are. Probably doesn't hurt that I've been seeing this trailer for years, and 5 of them or 6 of them or whatever are in most of the trailers, and they're all pretty easy to differentiate between locations and what Kraven is wearing and who he's fighting. So, you know, I'm sure I could have made a list of what these scenes would be before I saw the movie, but still, they were memorable enough. But you know, when you see a trailer and it has action, but it's also like punctuated with a lot of editing, and a lot of the times that seems to be to squish an action scene, like take all the really exciting parts and put them into the trailer. And you know, like, well, when this is in the movie, it's going to be a little bit longer, and there's not going to be this much editing, especially because these shots are sequential. Like this is one shot we're just breaking up to create a little bit of extra drama in this trailer. Almost every fight scene in this movie was edited like a trailer, which made them much less fun to watch, especially considering this is a character who, sure, has superpowers, presumably. You know, whether or not those are like the kind of superpowers that should let him fall down the face of a building and just land, or the kind of superpowers that should make him really good at doing backflips. That's up for kind of how you want to interpret a character like this. I think the second version is more interesting than the first one, but the first one's what we get. But like, even without that stuff, just the idea of this guy being master hunter, you know, uses the skills of the animals, has the speed of a cheetah and the dexterity of a monkey, chasing a car, swinging around a city, like that could be fun. But a lot of that action just felt like it needed to be slicker. Also, a lot of the CGI jumping felt very weightless, which is a problem a lot of these movies have. That's another one where you got to fix it with editing. However, I have a feeling the editors in this movie were quite busy. Like, there is a fair amount of ADR in this movie. A lot of it comes from Calypso. The worst ADR I was able to find in this movie, besides when it seems like they did change words coming out of Kraven's mouth on screen with technology. I guess they took my advice from my Madam Web video when I said, hey, if the character's going to be saying words, you probably want his mouth to be moving. They used the computer to make that work in certain scenes. So, way to go. But the worst bit of ADR, for me at least, was when the characters are talking about the potion that Kraven is going to get. Regular conversation between two characters about tarot cards, and then they start talking about the potion, and immediately it's wide shots and it's backs of people's heads. So that stuck out, but this is Sony, so what are we kidding? Like, we knew there was going to be some ADR. This movie has some really weird line reads. My favorite one, and this is not a consequential bit, like it's a consequential bit of the movie, but this isn't like the Avengers Assemble of this movie. There's a scene where Russell Crowe, this is in the past, Russell Crowe is picking up the kids from school to tell them that boys, your mother is dead with his little ascot on. Before that, the kids are both on the field or something, and a principal comes and says, Kravenov and Kravenov, your father is coming to pick you up. And I don't remember if that was exactly the tone that this line had, but it was equally weird. Very funny. I think the costumes are fine, kind of boring. I like it when, like, out of nowhere, Ariana DeBose is just wearing a Calypso outfit, which is a big, kind of a halter top or something. I don't know what you would call it, but it's definitely an outfit that she got somewhere. I don't know where it came from. I think all the Kraven outfits are okay. I think the big problem with the Kraven, and I think this was in the video game at some point, but there was an animation that got released very early, like before the game was out. One of the first things we saw was Kraven hunting in the forest. And it starts with a guy who kind of looks like Aaron Taylor Johnson. And you're like, oh, is this Kraven? And then real Kraven comes up behind him and gets him. And you're like, no, that's Kraven. I don't think that was a dig at the idea of a, like, less than humongous Kraven, but it does feel like a very clear example of like, oh yeah, that's how you do this. And to be fair, I think this story and like the thrust of this is Kraven, but he's a different Kraven. He's basically Catman from the Secret Society comics, a DC character who's been reinvented recently, where he was a hunter, or he was at least around hunters, and then after a chance encounter, he kind of becomes a Tarzan figure where he wants to protect the wildlife and he goes after hunters. I think that is a framing device for like a new version of Kraven. He's a hunter, but he mostly hunts people that hunt defenseless animals. Love it. The two problems with this movie: one, the movie really gets into the morality of Kraven, and especially through the lens of Chameleon, his brother. I'm just going to call him Chameleon. They don't really call him. They use the word chameleon once or twice in the movie in a way that's very shoehorned in, but whatever. That's how these usually go. But Dimitri brings it up a couple of times, like, you're just like our father. He's a hunter and you're a hunter. And Kraven takes this very personally. And this is like, whoa, now that you say it, I think you're making some sense. And I'm like, absolutely not. You're very, very different. Your father is a drug kingpin, and you are hunting drug kingpins. So that's like the opposite, basically. Sure, you both do murder, but it's completely different. So all this internal struggle about, oh, am I a good guy or a bad guy? I just don't buy it. My other problem, there are quite a few scenes where Kraven kills some guys that I'm supposed to hate. Some guys that I should be thrilled to watch Kraven kill. And I don't think the movie spends enough time setting these guys up as like, oh boy, I can't wait to see Kraven kill them. Kraven kills many goons that show up doing bad stuff, but I think what we needed is just more time with individual goons being really bad people, so that when Kraven gets them, it's fun. I go back to John Wick for this a lot, because it's a movie about a guy who goes and gets revenge because of what happened to his animal, and by showing Alfie Allen, Theon Greyjoy, an actor who's perfect for this, just being a real piece of work, it makes all that killing real fun. And that anticipation, because you know John Wick isn't going to die, but it's like, I can't wait to see him get Theon. They didn't do that enough with this movie. Honestly, the three main bad guys were kind of likable. None of them did anything that terrible. They talked about doing things that were bad, trafficking and weapons and drugs and stuff. We never saw it. And we also, besides Russell Crowe being a jerk, we didn't see very many of them even be mean. I mean, sure, they were a little bit too aloof when they were killing henchmen, but I don't know. That's not that interesting. Have them kick a puppy, just to make those action scenes less boring. Get me on Kraven's side. There's also some things that they just don't do in this movie that I'm like, oh, it was almost like a little fun thing that like they do a lot of dancing in these movies. Like Morbius, you have some dancing. Madam Web has some dancing. Venom dances in Venom 2 and 3. Kind of hoping there was some sort of goofy Kraven dance scene, but there isn't. And there's no crossover for other characters. We don't see any Morbius stuff. We don't see any Venom stuff. So these all might as well exist in their own separate universes. But like, I'm not surprised this isn't hitting. I don't think it's the worst movie they have made in the spunk. I do think it's maybe one of the more boring ones. Like I genuinely, I saw like a 2 p.m. screening and I could feel myself kind of falling asleep. The connections to Spider-Man in this one are actually really interesting. You know, we see like a Daily Bugle and stuff like that, but they really only go out of their way to mention Spider-Man adjacent characters or hint at Spider-Man stuff twice, I would say, in a big way. And I thought both were quite funny. The first is a character that gets name checked a lot. And I was like, man, he should have been in this. And this is clearly what the second one of these would have been. Now, you know what? He would have been a fun character to bring all of these guys together, like Morbius and Vulture, who's, I guess, in this universe, and the Venoms. But whatever, I don't think we're ever going to see him. The other connection is one of the funniest things these movies have ever done. And I'm going to spoil it. But yeah, if you don't want to hear this little detail and you want to end here, yes, the movie's bad. It's not a good movie. Don't watch it. You know, I don't know, see it for free when it comes on one of the streamers in like a couple of weeks, I'm sure. But this is a very fitting end for the spunk. But okay, so the Spider-Man connection. Spoiler alert. By the way, no post-credit scene or anything like that. Which, great, fine, who cares? But we will learn that Kraven's mother took her own life in some sort of asylum and had some sort of mental breakdown. We never hear why she was institutionalized or what happened. That is something that Kraven blames his father for, and he's probably right because his father's the worst. But we might find out later because the Foreigner basically has like scarecrow fear toxin that he uses to poison Kraven. So for a second, we see Kraven's biggest fear. And it happens to be the same as his mom's biggest fear. I will give you exactly one guess, and one guess is all you need to guess what Kraven is afraid of. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spiders. He's afraid of spiders. Kraven has a completely like hereditary fear of spiders. His mother, we see in the asylum screaming, the spiders, they're on me. And then Kraven sees the spiders come down. I'm sorry, Kraven. I thought you were one with nature. I wouldn't say spiders are like the same kind of nature as like a jaguar. But like, I don't know, it seems like they're the kind of nature you'd be cool with. But we're supposed to assume in this universe that eventually Kraven would go after Spider-Man, but not because Spider-Man is a superhero or Spider-Man is some sort of peak physical specimen. But no, Kraven would have a beef with Spider-Man specifically because he has a physiological hatred of spiders programmed into his brain. I think that is so funny. So I want to raise a glass to the spunk, the 6 movies in the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters that we got, and the even more movies that were announced and never made, like Sinister Six and Night Watch and Silver and Black and El Muerto and Hypno Hustler and Jackpot and that Aunt May spy movie and that Olivia Wilde Spider-Woman movie and The Silk Show. Cheers. But speaking of Kraven, I know what you guys are craving. You're craving this video's sponsor, Nebula. Nebula is a terrific streaming service that I helped to create, and Nando V Movies, Nando Cut, all those videos go up onto Nebula, along with videos by tons of other creators you already like. Some of those go up early, all of them are ad-free. There's also all kinds of exclusive Nebula content. Patrick Williams is working on a short film. Tom Nichols just dropped a documentary. It's really exciting. It's pretty crazy what people are able to come up with. We've got a lot of other projects that we're working on. They're very exciting. I'm sure you'll hear about them soon. And like, if you've never heard about it before, first of all, thank you for listening this far. Nebula is a subscription streaming service that I and a bunch of other YouTubers helped to create. We could put our videos out. It is a platform that is designed for and by video creators, but also for the audience. It is easy to find our stuff. You don't have to look through tons of ads and sift through lots and lots of content. Like, it's very easy to find the right stuff. We also curate. There's lists of different things. So if you want to look at, say, culture, the side of Nebula that I'm a part of, you can go to the culture page, look at what we got now. We got stuff about Dune, because there's that Dune show that I haven't seen, but I know exists. All kinds of videos about Dune. You go a little bit further down, you have videos about Venom, which just came out on VOD. And I'm sure when all the other culture creators, and maybe some others, finish their Kraven videos, perhaps even a Kraven page dedicated to our Kraven content. But for now, we got the Venom stuff to hold you over. And like always, a yearly subscription to Nebula is just $5 a month. That is $60 for the whole year. But if you use my code TheNandoCut at checkout, or go to go.nebula.tv/TheNandoCut, you can get a year of Nebula for $36. That's just $3 a month. It is an incredible deal. Go check it out now. I have a feeling you're going to love it.